How you guys doing? This is Adrian from AutoMarketplace.com. Today we have this 2024 Cadillac LYRIQ. We're going to be stress testing it on multiple rideshare platforms, so stay tuned, guys. So this is a quick walkthrough of some of the buttons that are here. First, let's start off with your heating system. You have your central air, you have your defrost, your rear. You know it's engaged when they turn on orange. Pretty simple. And if you want to complete it off, you turn it off. This is your vent. You could open it, close it, and you can move it up and down. Let's go onto this display. This is your home button. Every time you press it, it will take you home. So in your home button, you have the ability to search for all different type of settings. A quick tip, if for whatever reason you need to open up your glove compartment box, just go to this button right here next to the charge lightning bolt, and automatically brings you to like the lights, power doors, dome lights, glove box release, and so on. So you have your audio button. You could choose from multiple settings, from AM, FM, Sirius, Bluetooth, whatever your preference. Then you have different types of maps you could use. It's preloaded with Google, but you could use Waze as well. Then you have the phone option. This is where you control all the phones that are connected to your car. Then you have the climate controls. Then you have park assist. This is to do parallel parking, left, right, and so on. You also have your Play Store, just like you're on your phone. The next view, you have your settings, date, time, notification, display, sound. Profile counts, privacy, and so on. Then you have all your different modes. You have touring, you have your sport mode, snow and ice, and whatever your preference you set. This is the myCadillac app. You also could download it on your phone and control multiple things on your Cadillac, like you could find out where is it at, just in case you park it somewhere you forgot. This is also shows you where you could call for roadside assistance. We also have OnStar and just other things to do while you're in the car, listen to podcasts. You have your ambient lighting. You could customize it, and you have your choices between everything on the color wheel, so you're not limited like other vehicles are. And then you have your Waze, you have your news, whatever you guys want to listen to. So let's go down here to the handrest. You have this dial. You have multiple buttons that will control the screen up here. So you have the dial that will allow you to move between applications. You also have a home button. You have a call button. You have your music button where you could choose what you want to listen to, FM, satellite radio, whatever is available. You also have the center buttons for your map. It will load up your map, whatever map you were using. And then it has a back button. So if you just want to go back, just keep hitting back and it will go back. It's pretty simple like that. So if you don't have to be leaning over as you drive, you could just control this as you're driving. And then you also have a volume button right here. It'll control the volume of whatever you're listening to at the time. Oh, one more thing. You have little shortcut icons over here. You have your home button, your music, your map, your phone control, and then this is the sub menu, which you have glove box release, child lock, and so on. So if you hit your lightning bolt, the charge button, it will start calculating to see where they're your nearest charging stations. Once you find one that you like, you just hit the map and it will start navigating. It'll tell you what's available, what's out of service, and so on. Pretty simple like that. And you could just go. So over here at your display, you have multiple buttons on the left-hand side of the driver steering wheel. You have a gauge button, which brings up your traditional gauge, miles per hour, RPMs, your date and time, temperature outside. You have your energy display option, shows you the battery level and how many kilowatts are being used. You have your assist driving option. You also have an option called clean. It just shows you a very clean look. Then down here, the third button to the right, a little light bulb. That's how you control your headlights. You want to turn them off, put them on auto, daytime, and so on. If you go back here to this button on the left, it brings you back to the original menu, and you could go back to whatever favorite display you would like to use. You have the map option. It will load up a map as you drive. And for the people that like their display right in the middle. And it also has a projection option. And then just go back and you want to go back to your standard mode and so on. One more thing, if you're wondering how to control your windshield wipers, they're over here on the left side. If you press in, it will activate the window washing fluid. And if you move the dial, it'll control the speed just like every other Cadillac. And you know, your traditional left turn signals are on this side. And one more thing, if you want to, how you engage the park, drive, neutral, and reverse, you have to press in and then press down, or press in, press up. And if you want to put it on park, you always obviously hold your foot on the brake pedal and just engage park, and that's how you engage park. So if you want to take it off and go into drive, you hold down the brake pedal, press in, and then go down, and you then park, and so on. So this lever down here is where you activate the front or the hood. You have to pull it 2 times. 1, 2. That's where you have access to add window washing fluid, but there is no trunk space. So over here, if you're wondering how to open the tailgate, you got to press this down, and that's how you engage the tailgate. So the car is also equipped with mud flaps, front and back, pretty cool. Also has 20-inch rims, run flat tires. There is no spare, but they're run flats, they're very reliable. One cool feature with the 2024 model is the handles extend versus the old model, it will stay inside. So it's perfect, you just pull, get inside. Pretty roomy inside. You have dual charging ports. You can control the vents back here. Here in the center, you bring it down. Want to enjoy your coffee or your drink. 2 cup holders. Also cup holders on either side of the door. And as you can see, it's pretty roomy. And over here is how you control the unlock lock window and to open the door. I'm going to show you guys how to charge, either at a level 2 or supercharger, fast charger. So we have this 2024 LYRIQ Cadillac. So just pull up to your charging station. Make sure you're close enough, because sometimes these cords are not long enough. With this card, just press it here. Today we're going to do level 2, so there's no need to take this off for the supercharger connector. You go to your charger. You can either scan your QR with your phone to tell you what charger you're at. This station uses EVconnect. Make sure you download it on your phone. Add all your payment information. I already know which one it is. Just grab it, just like you at the gas pump. It acknowledges it. Acknowledges there. Find it on your phone. Click on it, and then just hit begin charge. Pick your method of payment, and just wait. And that's it. You're charging. The station acknowledges you. You also get a text message that you're charging. And it's simple as that. When you're done, you could either hit stop charging on your phone, or you could hit the button that's over there that tells you to stop the charge. And that's it. You unclick it and just put it back. Earlier we showed you how to do a level 2 charge. Today is I'm going to show you how to do a supercharge. So same thing as before with this Cadillac LYRIQ 2024. You press the button to open or close. We're going to do a supercharge, so we have to take this plastic cover off the bottom port. Again, this is EVconnect, so just find it on your phone or scan your phone and scan the QR code. I'm going to use this one right here. This one gives me 50 kilowatts. I'm using the CCS port. I'll show you guys in a moment what it looks like. This is the double one. Just plug it in. If you don't have the EVconnect app, that's okay. You could just use your credit card. Right now it's prompting you to choose a method of payment. You could either scan your credit card or go to your app. I have it up on my app. And you just hit, find the station, or if you're already hit the QR code, it'll pop up automatically. And just hit next, method of payment, and just wait. And that's it, and you're charging. You'll get a text message from EVconnect acknowledging that it's being charged, and it'll tell you how much you gotta pay and how many kilowatts were given, or whatever you paid, like you filled up in gas. Just with this type of car, if you notice inside the front of the car, there's a green light or a blue light or a red light. When it's acknowledging, it turns blue, and when it's actually charging, it turns green, and it'll just keep flashing green. When you're done, you could either come to the station, hit the stop button, or just press this, it'll disengage it, or just come in your phone and stop it in your phone. One thing I noticed in cold weather, sometimes the touchpad doesn't work, so just keep that in mind. So just make sure you have it on your phone so you can stop it. If not, you're gonna have to try to force this to disengage. But I only experienced that in really cold weather, like 10-degree weather lately that we've been having in New York State. And it's simple as that. When you're done, stop it. When you're ready, take it out and just put it back. And simple as that, like filling up your gas. The only thing is that you're taking a little bit longer. So earlier I showed you guys how to charge on a level 2 and a fast charger. One thing I wanted to point out is that keep in mind that these stations, they have a credit card hold on your account. So every time you swipe, they're putting a hold. Every station has a different amount. Some of them is 25, others are 30, 40, even 50. So keep that in mind. So today, the ones that I was showing you guys earlier, it was from EVconnect. I just was playing around just to, for you guys to see that they actually put a hold. So if you notice here, the 2 times that I was recording, they actually put a hold every single time that I started charging. So that's just a temporary hold. It's up to 72 hours. Some of them is 48 hours. It all depends on the station that you guys go to. But just keep that in mind. So just make sure you have those funds in your card, and make sure you try to get it right the first time, because it could be really, you could really hurt yourself, plugging in and taking it off, and you will start occurring these holds in one day. So just keep that in mind with these charging stations. Also with the credit card, they also put a hold. This was done through the app. I noticed with the app, Sometimes the hold is a little bit less. So just play around and you know, experiment. One thing you guys have to also remember when you're driving EV, you have to get in the habit of downloading different apps for EV. So I have EVgo, I have the Tesla app, I have ChargePoint, even an EV calculator, EV Connect, Charge Finder, Electrify America, and so on. Every single station, even Flow. Every single station that you guys are charging at might require a different app. Or if you don't want to download the app, which is fine, you could just use your credit card like I showed you earlier. Plug in your charger always first, and then follow the prompts for payment. And it's simple as that. So another tip when you guys are looking for a charging station, one thing I always like to mention is that if you're driving EV, get to learn your actual miles, what your car is actually burning up. Because I learned in the cold weather, the miles are not actually accurate, and also just driving itself is not accurate. So if you think your speedometer says you have 100 miles left, it's actually not 100 miles. It might be like 80 or 70 miles. So if you're looking for a charging station, one of the cool things about these EV cars, every EV car has a button that finds and locates your closest stations where you're at. So here I already clicked it, and this is showing me all my closest stations where I'm at, and it also tells you how much percent you're going to arrive. One of the recommended things that they tell you to do is to try to charge your car at 20%. Anything lower, you know, you might be risking it because of the weather factor as well and the mileage. But when you find it, it's very simple. Find where you want to go. Click on it, it'll take you, and it'll tell you how many miles you're going to have, you're going to arrive. And also, like I said earlier, give yourself enough miles to get there. So always, whatever you have on your dash, always give yourself an additional 30 to 20 miles of playing it safe. You don't want to get there and run out of juice, you know, like 5 miles before you get to the place. So don't risk it. When you're getting down to 20%, 25%, you know, start looking for a charger, and also give yourself those additional 30 miles just to play safe. And then just keep in mind when the weather is cold outside, it does affect the vehicle. It drains it like additional 10 miles to 20 miles from your battery. So just keep that in mind. So that was it for finding a charger. Pretty simple. Give yourself time, learn how many miles you guys have and how accurate those miles are as you're driving, and just use your app or use your phone, and it kind of tells you when you get there, and you know, just pick one, and it kind of shows you where you want to go. So another cool feature about your car or the app, the car will actually show you what stations, what ports are actually available and what type of ports are there. So for instance, this one, it actually shows you which ones are available. So this is a CCS, and then you have this one, the J1772, and it tells you if they're available or not. Also on the app, I'll show you the app here, just a random station. It tells you which ones are available. You click on it, and it tells you what are the two connectors. You have that one, and then you also have this one, the most common one, and then it will tell you which ones are being used. See, these are all occupied stations. So you know when you get there if they're going to be occupied or not. So just be careful. Sometimes you might go to a station, there might be only 2 fast chargers and like 5 level 2, and they all occupied. So just keep that in mind, because you might have a waiting time. But it's pretty cool feature. And then you can also start saving them as your favorites. So you can start making a list of your favorite stations. Those are my favorites. This one's actually pretty cool up there in Liberty, New York. It's a 350, but some cars cannot accept that, but it does charge your car pretty fast. And you can see the fees are different at different locations. This is outside of New York City. It's 45 cents. There's also peak hours and non-peak hours, so keep that in mind as well when you're charging. It's always cheaper to charge overnight or really early morning. I think 39 cents a kilowatt. So every station has a different rate. It's cheaper for some reason inside the 5 boroughs versus leaving the tri-state area. So it's cool. It gives you little pictures, and so you guys can kind of get a a visual what it's going to look like when you arrive, because sometimes when you arrive to these places, you got to kind of find them, and so on. So it's pretty cool. So another cool app to use is EVgo. A lot of guys that purchase cars, they might get a 2-year unlimited charging. Not unlimited, but it's 2-year free charge with EVgo. They'll give you a card that you got it in your home. Also, if you don't have the free charge because you purchased the vehicle, you also could order the card and they will link it to your credit card, so you don't have to carry a credit card or the app. You could just swipe and it'll activate the charging once you plug in. And you see, and it tells you all the stations that are available. And it tells you what type they are, so you could kind of see before you get there. And you can notice the rates. This has a 99-cent session fee, and it's 59 cents a kilowatt. It's more expensive than the city when you're out of the city. And that's it. So another thing I want to discuss is your different rates at different times. So this is an example of Upstate. They have an early bird special, and then they have off-peak hours, and they have on-peak hours. So if you look here, you can see the early bird special is 12 a.m. to 7 a.m., 10 p.m. to 12 a.m., and then off-peak is 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., and 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., and then on-peak hours are 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. These early bird, off-peak, and on-peak are kind of similar all over, but the rates are just a little bit different. So just keep that in mind, that at different times, the rate to charge is a lot different. So one more thing I wanted to touch base on is miles and how the weather affects your mileage. So here in New York, we've been getting a lot of cold temperatures. I'm noticing that you get about a 20 to 30% mile droppage on your actual miles. So keep that in mind. So if you have to go somewhere, just give yourself that additional miles, because the weather does affect the car. Even when you park the car at night, let's say you have 200 miles on your dash. In the morning, I have experienced almost a 10 to 15 mile drop when I come in the morning to turn the car on. So keep that in mind. Don't go park and you only have like 40 miles left on your car, because you might come to your car in the morning and those miles will disappear and you will not be able to turn your car on. So just keep that in mind. Same thing when you're looking for a charging station. The cold weather also affects your mileage. So just always give yourself an additional 20 to 30% on your charge every single day. As you can see here in New York, we're actually having better weather, but you know, that's something to keep in mind, that cold weather does affect the mileage in your car. So one of my pros about this car is I love the look, the styling, 20-inch rims, beautiful car, ambient lighting, you could adjust it. The controls are just like your standard car. I prefer that versus a tablet, everything being in the middle. And you know, you driving, you gotta get used to turning on the wiper, you know, even adjusting your seats or your mirrors or any other type of adjustment. Some cars, everything's in the center. That's a little annoying for me and to get used to. I prefer a car that kind of reflects your traditional car, that has your standard buttons. You could control the mirrors right on the side, and you still have a nice display. So that's one of my pros about this car, that is still traditional with the buttons, but you still have all this brand new technology on this long LED display. Love the car, very roomy. You have enough room to put a couple luggages. One of the positives that I like about this car is the range. This gives you like 314 miles when you get almost fully charged. That's pretty amazing. So I enjoy that. Now for my cons about the vehicle, and I think it goes also with EV cars. One of the things that I do not like is the waiting period that you have to kind of factor in your everyday life. If you don't have a home to charge overnight, you have to kind of start mapping out your favorite stations where you're gonna charge, and get used to, and also map out what time you're gonna get there, because sometimes you might get there and all the stations, like this station where I'm at, there's only 1, 2, 3 superchargers. So, and they're all full. And there's been times that I've arrived here and there's like 5 cars just lined up waiting for these 3 stations to be available. And sometimes I wait a whole hour and a half to get my turn. Other times I wait like an hour and a half and then I get fed up and then I have to go somewhere else. So that's the little negative, the con that I don't like about the infrastructure still in New York City and in New York State. But you know, they're talking about that it's becoming better. I have seen it. There are a couple more stations now that are becoming more available, but that's one of the factors that you got to take into consideration is the, you know, the waiting time. And then once you actually start charging, you also got to factor in that, you know, you might have to sit for an hour to 45 minutes to get, you know, from 20% to 80% if you don't charge at home, because you're only relying on one of these stations. And this is a supercharger, so a supercharger will get you from 20% to 80% under 45 minutes or so. They also have level 2. That takes a lot longer. That's not really practical. That's only practical like if you're going to work or going to school, you plug it in and you leave it alone for 6-8 hours, then you might get like 20-30 miles out of it. But you know, for everybody else, you know, for TLC or just a person that's on the go, you have to always invest that time of sitting in your car for 45 minutes to an hour to get a full charge. One of my cons about the vehicle, in the cold weather, get used to your car's actual miles when you're driving. I experienced a couple times that I was driving and I thought I had enough miles, and I was actually, when I got to the destination, I used up an additional 20 to 25 miles extra on the trip, especially in cold weather. And the lower the battery percentage is, the faster that your mileage will start disappearing, even at a short distance. So, you know, don't wait to charge your car when you have 52 miles and you might have to drive 30 miles to the charging station. You know, give yourself at least, when you hit 20%, which should be at least 100 miles or so, or a little bit more, then go look for a charging station. Don't push it, especially in the cold weather. Now that it's getting warmer, I do notice that the miles burn up a little slower than it did when it was colder. So that's one of the cons that I don't like, that you actually don't have actual miles. So if you're driving 100 miles and you have 200 miles in your car, you might actually use up 130 miles. And then when it's colder, it might be a little bit less. So, you know, that's one of the cons I don't like about EVs. But other than that, you know, it's a fun car to drive. Another pros is that it's very responsive. It drives amazing. But one of the cons to me is that it has a lot of torque. So you have to be really careful when you accelerate. You could lose control. And I've seen a lot of EVs on the road here in New York City that, you know, they're accelerating, they lose control in the rain or in the ice. It happens really easily. So just keep that in mind. Also, the controls, you have to adjust to the controls, because you know, American styles are different. Like your reverse might be in the bottom, so you could, like, you know, you have neutral, drive, and then reverse might be in the top, or it might be the opposite way, or it might be pushed in depending on the type of knob or handle that you have. So get used to those controls because they might be reversed on what you normally used to on your vehicle. Other than that, beautiful car for anybody that's looking to get into EV. This is a great car, 2024 Cadillac LYRIQ, Sport Edition. Beautiful 20-inch rims, run flat tires, great space for your family trunk, for your family to put up luggage or a family trip. Chairs, seats are very spacious, very comfortable for long trips. The ambient lighting, you could adjust the top, the bottom. It makes a great atmosphere. Great car, I totally recommend it.
Adrian, thanks a lot for joining us. Everybody, I don't know, unless people skipped ahead in the video, everybody probably just saw the review that you and Jason did. Jason, you know, Jason Shaw also helps produce and edit the videos. He's part of the core AutoMarketplace team with myself and Adrian. And so I think we just wanted to add this follow-up discussion just to kind of, you know, have a discussion with you about your experience. This review, a lot of people might not realize, was done over 3 weeks. You know, it might seem like you did it over a day, but it was over 3 weeks. So one thing I wanted to start out with that we didn't get a chance to discuss was your experience using the LYRIQ in Uber and Lyft. And it might be helpful for you to describe people your background, how many, like, what's your rating, how many trips have you done with Uber, and how is it like using the LYRIQ for Uber and Lyft in New York City?
Yeah, so I've been doing rideshare since 2015. I mainly always drove like SUV or black. My rating on Uber is 4.99, and on Lyft is the same 4.99. Sometimes it goes up to 5. I have done over 10,000 trips since 2015 on the platform. With having the chance of driving this LYRIQ, the car is amazing. Clients love it. Doing it on the rideshare platform, I was averaging between like 20 trips a day. Um, and
were those mostly Uber Black trips, the 20 trips?
Um, Due to the fact that I was experimenting with the car, there were some days like being a driver, you accumulate knowledge like when to turn on black, when to go on, go to X, depending on the time, the date, and the area you're in. So for instance, like one day was raining, so I was in a high-end neighborhood, and it was kind of like rush hour. So I knew at that time it's really good if you have the other more expensive options to switch over to those options. And that's when I did, like, I'll switch over to black at that moment. And it was like, black, back to back. But again, it's not always like that. There's other times that people don't take black and you have to just kind of just suck it up. But a lot of people now are taking comfort and electric comfort. So like, they don't want to spend the money for black, they'll switch over to comfort. And then sometimes depending on the surges, black is actually more cheaper when it's surging, like on rainy days. So people that are normally X drivers, they actually will use black or comfort because the surge is a lot less on that platform.
Interesting. So that's very, very helpful, that insight. And so how many trips would you say you did in the LYRIQ, like overall trips?
Overall, I think I did over like 250 trips.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so that's important for people to hear, because that means your review is not like I did 10 trips and like this is how
No,
people acted. This is like
yeah.
250 trips over, over 3 weeks. So we'll start out with, I guess, how did customers like it, and were there any like notable incidences while you were doing the trips where it was like, like that you could share that people got in the car and were like, they said something?
Yeah. Well, like the car itself is a beautiful car in and out. Every single passenger, I could say, literally were like blown away because sometimes I was doing X, but I was just going out there grinding it, giving the full review, putting it through, black car driver passengers and X passengers. All the passengers were always like, "Oh my God, what type of car is this? Is this full electric?" Even like like very professional individuals, they were amazed, and then themselves were like owners of like the Lucid or even the Rivian or even the Teslas, and they were like, wow, this car completely is a different looking car compared to these type of cars. I had a couple incidents. One was a very incident that stands out was that stood out was I was driving on 47th Street between 7th and 8th, and I was stuck in traffic, and a fellow rideshare guy just kind of was behind me, and then all of a sudden I see him coming towards my window, knocking on the window, and say, "Hey, can you roll down the window?" And being a New Yorker, I'm not gonna just roll down the window, but I kind of cracked it, and he was like, "Oh, I just, sorry about this, but I just really wanted to ask you, do you like the car? I'm very interested in buying the car. It looks amazing." And then, I told him about it. He was a little nervous about the charging. I kind of reassure him that it's possible because I told him I'm testing it out, and I am at, after like the third day, I got really comfortable with the car, the charging and all that. So that was pretty cool that drivers were like coming up to me, even when I was at charging stations. Drivers will come up to me and they're like, "Can I go in, look at the car?" And I let them go inside the car, look at it, open the hood, show them all the stuff. And these were other fellow drivers that were driving Model Y. They were driving all different types of Kias, and they loved the car. Positive reviews, customers loved it. They liked the humming of the noise. A lot of people were giving me good feedback. They're like, "What's that noise?" And I was explaining.
Like does it
Yes.
make noise like when you from the outside you can hear the humming, or the
You
inside?
you hear it from both, in and out. So it's like a musical humming that as you accelerate goes, but it has like a jingle to it. You hear it on the outside too, which is kind of good versus you rolling up to people in the crosswalk in New York City, and it's silent.
Up on them. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was pretty cool, and they thought that was very pleasing. But positive reviews by from drivers, fellow drivers, and also passengers. Nothing negative about the car. Everybody was just like, they just couldn't believe that that car was electric and it looked the way it looked. They didn't think like like, oh wow, it's actually a Cadillac, and the way it was driving, they loved it.
Did you ever run into another LYRIQ driver during the weeks?
Yes, I've ran into like 3 drivers on the road, and we kind of parked all lined up in Hudson Yards, and we kind of were talking about the car, and exchanging stories of like, oh, how is it when you're charging? Do you like charging? Do you charge at home? Stuff like that. And they all love their car. They were lucky that they all actually charge at home. So like that's something I touched earlier on the video, that the charging, it's something that you have to really map out and get used to it. But once you do, like by the second day, third day, you kind of become a master in understanding your car, the range and stuff like that. But yeah, I ran into a couple of them, and
And
everything was positive with
like
them.
they were all TLC guys with
Yeah,
Lyric?
they all were TLC. Two of them were, well, both of the guys were TLC, and they had private clients, but they also would turn on the Uber app from time to time.
Got
That's
it.
kind of like something that all us TLC rideshare guys do, that whether we're working for private clients or a company, we still will turn on the Uber and Lyft app, whether it's just to sneak peek or pick up a couple rides for extra money
Yeah,
here
when
and
it's
there.
slow, that makes total sense. And
Yeah.
as long as I've known
Hmm.
you, like, I know you serve a very high client, it's more Uber Black, private clientele kind of
Yeah.
people that you
Hmm.
service. So, okay, so one thing that I know a lot of drivers and people that the content we've done and the articles we've written, a lot of people say like, especially for Uber Black and private clients, like let's say you're on 40 or this concept, I'll try to summarize this as best. Like, let's say you're on 40 or 50% charge, and then your client's like, let's go to Connecticut or let's go to New Jersey or let's do a long distance trip. Did you ever run into that? And like, or did Uber not send you the trips? Like, how did you think through that? Like, let's say, so you're on 40% charge, then you're at Hudson Yards, and you're like, okay, this is my last trip of the day, and someone wants to go to Connecticut, and you're like, oh man, like, is this gonna make it? How do you think through that?
So in the beginning, not knowing the range of the car and understanding, like the miles, the actual miles, but like the first 2 or 3 days, yes, I was very nervous. I kind of wouldn't take trips when I was like at 30% and I saw like long trip. I kind of avoided them. But after the fifth day, I became very confident. I kind of knew the car and the range that it had. So if I was at 40, 30%, I was very confident of going, over 150 miles. Anything like 200 miles at 30%, I was a little iffy. I kind of will avoid it, but I never ran into that issue. On that note, with the range, like I have done rideshare with another company, and their company, they kind of have the app connected kind of to the car, so the app knows when you're reaching at a 20%, and the app would tell you, start going to start heading to the charging station and charge your car. And I think they also avoid giving you those long trips, but within the city, the miles are very accurate. So if you're okay within the city and you're low at 20 miles, you could at 20%, you could still go to JFK and come back with no problem. But if you're at 40% and you do get one of these 80-mile trips, 40%, it's doable, just because I myself, like, I drive a lot up to upstate, which is like an hour and a half from New York City. So that gave me the experience and the confidence of picking up trips at 40, 30%, and knowing that, like, oh, I could do 60 miles up to Connecticut and back. And also mapping out everything. Like, you have to be really proactive as a driver and map out everywhere. Like, once you have a couple years, a couple months driving, you kind of know, the stops become repetitive. Like, people live in Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island, where they're at. So I myself, I did my homework ahead of time, and I'll just look for those stations. So if I was always anticipating, okay, if I go up to Connecticut or Stanford, wherever that's like 50 miles away from the city, I knew, like, okay, I could park there and, start finding a charging station.
So it's like, so you mentioned so many, that's number one, amazing insight, and even the review, you go over all the charging thing. I wanted to double click on one thing you mentioned in the review, was this weather thing. Especially right now, obviously it's the cold weather. I'm sure in the summer it'll be like the AC and everything draining it. So like, if you had to give advice, like someone's watching this video, someone's watching the review, is like, okay, wow, I can make the LYRIQ work. And like you said, some guys had home charging. So with the guys with home charging, it might be easier. But then you didn't have a home charger necessarily. You were in the city, doing that dance of like standing in the line and all of that stuff. So you're saying I can make it work. Anyways, very long-winded way to say, how would you describe how the weather impacted the range for TLC work? Like, how would you describe that?
So The cold weather 100% affects the vehicle's battery, the way it holds the charge. Even parking your car overnight and the temperature drops below, freezing, you're gonna lose like about 10 miles on the car. So that's what I'll tell, fellow drivers, cold weather affects your car. It's kind of like a gas car. Don't drive around on, on E. We kind of could get away with it because we can know like, oh, it's on E. We have 30-mile range to the gas station. But with the electric car, I wouldn't recommend anybody parking their car overnight with like let's say 50%, because if it drops really cold, it might be really low, and then you will make it to the charging station, but they might be aligned. Myself, I learned that when driving in the cold weather, if you have 200 miles on the odometer, and it's actually, you might lose as you're driving long distance. This is when I noticed, when you're driving long distance, like 50-mile trips, you will lose like 20 miles, 15 miles on the trip. So you always have to, I'll tell drivers now, anticipate that, learn your car and learn how much it drains in cold weather. With the charging stations, as an Uber driver, that let's say I'm filling up in the streets, I would tell everybody, just learn your favorite spots. It's kind of like learning, where to pick up passengers, when and where and what time. Same thing goes with the charging, how to plan your charging. I myself, sometimes I'll charge midday. That midday 80% charge will take me for 10 hours. And then I still have like a 30% charge for the next day. And then that day, I kind of will start planning my day, like start driving for 3 hours. And then within those 3 hours, I'll kind of start planning to go charge before it gets peak hours also, because in rideshare we have to be out there where it's peak hours, because if not we kind of lose out and we have to wait another 8 hours before it becomes peak hours, or 6 hours for the rush where we make our money. So I also learned other drivers were charging 2 times a day. They'll charge in the morning, in the beginning of their shift, and then at the end of their shift. And that's how they were doing it. Other guys were like,
is that because is the thinking being that like they do that so like when they wake up the next day they can kind of get going, versus it's not like you drain the battery fully and then you you drain the battery fully and then the next morning the way you start the day is charging. You're basically saying that like they start the day with a full charge and then midday they charge again, is kind of like that?
Correct. Yeah, because like with us, time is money. So we, especially drivers that are putting in 10, 12 plus hours, you don't want to wake up in the morning and gotta go look for a charging station, and then it might be a little bit full, or you still got to spend 30 minutes to an hour at a charging station, but you don't want to do that in the beginning of your shift because you're gonna lose money. You want to get up and just start, go to your zone and start making money. So that's why those type of drivers that would charge after they finish their shift, so they could wake up and have a full charge and have a full day, and then they could kind of charge their car when the car is like maybe at 40%. One of the things that's recommended also is to charge the car when it drops below 20%, just because they recommend that when the battery is below 20%, you get a faster charge to 80% versus you charging it at 60%. It will take you longer to go from 60 to 80% versus going from 20 to 80%. So
that's very interesting. That's actually extremely important advice that you just said, that 20 to 80 thing. I think for drivers who are new, they might be like, oh, we'll go to 5% and then charge to 95%, and that has other implications for the battery. How long would you say, it's kind of, how many times did you just pull up to a charger in the city and there was no line? Like, out of all the times you charge over the 3 weeks, like how many times was there a line to wait to charge? And was it mostly like you just kind of, the charger was always open? Like, what was the experience around that?
No. So different days and different times, the chargers were empty. And because I was kind of just after, figuring it out after 3 days and knowing when rush hour begins, I kind of always was going to these charging stations and out of the way before rush hour started. So I kind of planned that way. But if I did happen to find myself going like at 2 p.m. or going there on a Sunday at 1 p.m., the charging stations were always packed. And sometimes I did have to wait in line, like, I was like the third car waiting for 6 cars to finish using the rapid charger. So you have to plan that because you might run into those situations that the stations are packed.
And that's a real, and let's be fair about this, because I think sometimes the media covers this like, oh my God, there's they're kind of covered very imbalanced ways. So let's frame it like this. What is the longest you've ever had to wait to charge, like from waiting to charge to getting the 80% or 90% you needed? what's the longest you've ever had to, like, that process taken?
Yeah.
What's like the shortest that's process ever taken?
So first, it all depends on like where's your starting point. Like for me, my starting point was up in the Upper West Side. So for me to get to a charging station that I like and that I knew that was going to be available, I might have to drive to Queens to like Kew Gardens, or I might have to go down to Delancey. So it didn't matter. It was always like 45 minutes to that location before charging, and then hoping that it was empty. One of the cool things, the apps do kind of show you that they're available, but what I learned, it's actually not accurate. So you might show up to a station saying that it's available and it's not even available, or it might be available, but it's broken down. The infrastructure is really not there for New York City, but it's doable as a driver. There are a lot of other places like, you can make it happen. But for instance, I'll give an example. I was in the Long Island City Revel charging station parking lot. And a few times I go in there, I go right, I get a charge. Other times on a Sunday, I went in there and I was the third car waiting out of 6 other cars behind me, and all the stations were full. So I had to wait 2 hours to get to my turn, plus the other hour of charging. So that's like 3 hours, 3 hours out of my day. That was the charging and the waiting and looking for chargers was really frustrating, especially if I'm planning to spend 10 hours driving. Now I had to always take extra time, 3 hours out of my day, 2 hours out of my day to just look for stations, wait my turn, and charge. So that's a big it hurts.
That would be like, and that's actually that you framed it so well. Basically, the other point you're making is you actually have to include the time that you're going out of your way to drive to the charging stations. Actually, that should be included. So basically, your worst experience would be like 3-4 hours of time taken. And what's your best experience, and what was your like typical experience in that?
After kind of, I could say I became a pro at it by the third day, looking for stations and finding them and knowing which ones are my favorites and knowing the range of the car and stuff. I typically, it will take me 45 minutes to get to the station, or sometimes I would plan it like if I get a trip out to an airport or to near to those locations, I'll be like, okay, I'm just gonna take the time and just suck it up and lose my time and charge the station, because let me just take advantage that I'm here already. And sometimes I'll lose out on the rush hour, just to get that full 80% charge. So that's how my day was. But it was always like if I just got to start my day or I'm going to stop after 4 hours, it was a 2 hour ordeal, 1 hour to get to the station and hoping that it's empty. Normally I planned those moments when I knew that the stations were less full, like they were actually empty. I'll go there, and I was always lucky that there was no waiting. So I was just very lucky. But there were times that, I had to wait 3 hours. And a few times I drove to JFK. In their JFK Plaza, they have a Tesla supercharging stations, and they were constant lines, like 15 cars just online, plus all the stations wait to fully charging Tesla cars. And I was like, holy crap, I would not want to be in their shoes. So the infrastructure in New York City, as a driver, from the experience that we put on this test through, it's not there. It has to get better. It is getting better because there are a little bit more superchargers, and Revel offers them to all the drivers, which is amazing. Shout out to them. But it has to get really better. Especially us drivers, time is money. We can't spend 3 hours out of our 10-hour riding days just looking for charge and working, and then managing a family life. It's not cool in my experience. So I know a lot of drivers are going through this and stuff.
And it's good you say that, because I think for like our platform, AutoMarketplace, we're definitely not anti-EV. In fact, a lot of people, when we started our very first review video was actually like how to charge Chevy Bolt, and we did that back in 2020. So we're very pro EV, but I think what we're trying to do with our platform is like, just like, this is the truth. Like, as long, like, especially if a LYRIQ, as we mentioned in the video, is a $80,000, $70,000+ car. So if you're going to make this big investment, and like, you got to know the ground reality. One other thing, and another thing I wanted to touch on that you mentioned also right now, and I think you alluded to in the video, is that in the city, the EV range is a little bit more accurate versus like when you're on the highway, which is sometimes that would almost be counterintuitive. Do you think that might have to do with like the regenerative braking, like giving you back charge or something?
Yeah, I learned like with the Lyric, it has a feature that's called brakeless driving, which regenerates the battery. I noticed that when I'll take these long hour and 45-minute trips back up to my house, that the range I lose, magically 30, 20 miles just disappear from the actual how many miles I had to drive to the location. But within the city, because it's a lot of stop and go, I learned that the range is actually more accurate, and you actually sometimes get a little bit more miles out of the charge. So, that's a plus, especially in the city that we do a lot of short trips. We're in the city, even Newark, JFK and LaGuardia is considered a short trip, which is okay. So yeah, you do get a better range locally, but long range, I guess because the battery's not regenerating, it does drain a little bit more.
Got
One thing I wanted to add was using these charging stations. Just a reminder that there's a hold on your account, so different stations will hold $30, $40, even $50, up to 48 hours, 72 hours. So you have to keep that in mind, especially like these guys that are charging twice a day. That's a hold twice a day, every single day. So that's another thing that I didn't appreciate. Being a
That's actually
driver.
that's such an excellent technical point. You're basically saying that like, and you mentioned this in the review video, but like
Mhm.
it's kind of like like how Easy Pass kind of does an auto debit. You're basically
Yeah.
saying with these EV chargers, like
Mhm.
there could be a 100 to $150 held up, and yes, you'll
Yeah.
get that money back, but obviously you can't use the money because it's in like a pending transaction. And
Yeah.
as everybody knows, with whether you're driving, to have $150 not accessible because it's
Mhm.
like kind of in this like depository
Yeah.
hold perpetually, it's something to keep in mind. The other thing before, and obviously we're going to do a lot more of this, but as we kind of wind down this kind of post review interview, is that a thing you mentioned in your video was that like you spend a lot of time in the city and in upstate, like about like you said,
Yeah.
an hour and a half away
Mhm.
in New York State. You counterintuitively, or at least to me, counterintuitively, and probably others, you were saying that the charging is cheaper in the city
Yeah.
than it is like it was
Yeah.
upstate.
Yeah, correct. Like in the city, the kilowatts were like 39 cents. Sometimes at peak hours is like 49 cents. But out of state, like as soon as you get out of the five boroughs, like even in Nyack or Woodbury Commerce, it was like 60 cents a kilowatt. And when I was forced to use those, I just wanted to try like on a 350 kilowatt station at 60 cents a kilowatt. It came out to almost $60 to get up to 80%. So it's kind of
Okay, so
like,
that's great
yeah,
data. So you're basically saying, and we probably should have mentioned that too, where you're basically saying to do what's the cost from 20 to 80. So in the city it was
mhm,
like 20 to $30, but upstate it was
mhm.
often like 45 plus, basically.
Plus, yeah, exactly, yeah. And then one thing I wanted to point out, like when these EV drivers they show up to a station, they have DC fast chargers. The charger could give you up to some of them are like 150 kilowatts or 350 the newer superchargers, but it doesn't matter if how high they are. If your car is only programmed to receive a certain amount, like this Lyric says it gets 150 kilowatts, like it could accept it, but I went to 350 stations, and the most I saw was 75, 76 kilowatts being accepted, but I'm still paying that higher premium thinking that my car is going to charge faster, but it was not, but I'm still paying the higher premium per kilowatt.
And your average supercharger, when we call it like 20 to 80, let's say that charge, like it took like 45 minutes, 35 minutes on average, like something like
um with this Lyric, it always was like 45 minutes to like 45 minutes, like to an hour, 45 to an hour from 20 to 80.
Okay, got it. And I know you've had experience, and we're gonna do more car reviews, but I know you've already had experience with Tesla
Mhm.
supercharging. Your
Yeah.
experience with that was like it was more like half an hour, like 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's kind of where the Tesla kind of beats out these cars because their technology is based on that supercharging format, so they could accept a more juice, more kilowatts, so they do charge faster. Like a couple of times I was side by side with a Model Y, I was already there for 20 minutes, and they got there 20 minutes after, and they were at the same range that I started, and they got up to 80% in like 25 minutes versus me, I'm still waiting there, 45 minutes plus.
Oh my God, that's very demotivating, but it's very interesting. So as we wrap this kind of part of the review up, so okay, on the Lyric, I think like you said at the top, and you said in the review, it's a beautiful car. Passengers love it. Customers love it. It is an $80,000 car, so it better be beautiful, or 70,000 plus car. But it is a beautiful car. And also the other point from an Uber Black perspective, I think yes, the Tesla Model Y qualifies for, as you know, qualifies for Uber Black. But I think this LYRIQ is the more kind of it feels like an Uber Black car, where people who know the industry, like it feels like a private client car. So I think that's why a lot of people are intrigued by this. Now, after everything, you've been in this industry long enough, you know cars, you know all of this stuff. If a driver wants to buy, or a fleet for that matter, but if they want to buy this car, like what's your thinking around? Is it kind of like beautiful car, everything, but man, this math is hard to work out? Like, well, how would you view it? Given that you drove it for 3 full weeks, you did over 200 trips, all of this stuff.
Well, being the Cadillac and the name brand that it comes with, amazing car. Your high-end clients will love it. I think Cadillac lowered their prices as well recently in 2024, while we just filmed this. If you could get the numbers right, get a good deal on on the price of the vehicle, it's a better car to buy in for fleets. But I think if you're being a fleet owner and you want to get into the EV world and want to rent them out, I might go with the cheaper brand because it still qualifies for the same platform, Black. But again, it all depends on your client base and then your driver base.
And you were making the just so, and we review this in the video very briefly, but if you do the car payments and the insurance payments, full coverage, the gentleman we rented the LYRIQ from, we know the numbers, so you could make the earnings work.
Yeah,
would you say that?
Yes, that was one of the things knowing that information before going into this, I wanted to put in the time. That's why I put in so many hours to see if it's possible for a fellow basic driver that's doing Black to make the numbers work. Yes, you could definitely make the numbers work. Yes, it's going to be a little inconvenience because of the charging. That's the biggest downfall, because you lose that time, and for us, time is money. 3 hours out of the day, that's a big chunk of change that you're losing out, and even more depending on the time if you're losing it out on rush hour and stuff like that. But it's 100% doable. Again, it's, to me, I would say a more seasoned driver, it's doable. If you're a newbie, it's going to be a lot hard because you have to learn the market. So it's not just like you could just get in the car and you're going to make money every day. You have to know the market, the time, the location, and your client base. But it's 100% doable, even for fleet owners. For fleet owners, it might be a little bit different because of the insurance. It's really high. And not all the drivers have that experience of being like a Black car driver only and knowing the locations and how to make it work. But it's 100% doable.
Yeah. And by the way, you'll be humble about it, but Adrian, just so for audience know, he's a 4.99, 10,000. So this advice is coming from someone who is experienced. He's done it, super high rated driver. So let's say there's, like you're saying, let's say there's a new guy's like, oh, I want this LYRIQ. I want to be the guy who's driving the Cadillac. You just got to really think about this, which is coming from you, it adds a lot of weight. So, okay. So I think, Adrian, thanks a lot for number one, the review. We're going to do this. Obviously you, me, and Jason are going to do more reviews. We're also going to follow up with all three of us know the driver who rented this LYRIQ from. So our goal is we're going to do like a 3 to 6 month later kind of thing. We're like, how is this car 6 months from now or 3 months from now? And hopefully it's still going great and the charging infrastructure gets built out more. So, thanks a lot, Adrian, for doing this. We're going to do more of this. And, I think hopefully, people, let us know if you have any questions for Adrian. We'll answer them in the comments below. And thanks a lot for your time.
It usually costs between $70,000 to $80,000, including 8.875% New York State sales tax and applicable EV tax credits, and promotions to purchase the 2024 Cadillac LYRIQ we test drove. Specifically, as can be seen from the image, the LYRIQ we drove cost $73,105 before taxes and credits, and was a fairly loaded luxury sport all-wheel drive edition. Currently, the cost of New York City TLC liability insurance is usually not greatly impacted between gas, hybrid, or electric vehicles. Typically, an individual will pay between $4,000 to $5,500 per year in premiums for a liability policy. As AutoMarketplace has covered, it's currently difficult to find insurance companies willing to underwrite popular EVs like Tesla's. However, for the Cadillac LYRIQ, the owner did manage to secure a TLC comprehensive and collision policy from Kingstone Insurance. In the initial year, comp and collision coverage is priced at $5,085, or 7% of the purchase price of the vehicle. After the initial year, the comp and collision insurance should be cheaper and based on a lower depreciated value. That being said, based on our research, the cost of a full coverage insurance policy for a New York City TLC-plated 2024 Cadillac LYRIQ will be between $9,500 to $11,000 for most commercially licensed NYC TLC drivers in the first year of owning the vehicle.